So to really understand peak performance, and the reason we need peak performance is because it is going to be the thing that will bring us the highest results in life. Like, think about it from the scale of like waking up to going to sleep. Everything that happens in that time period is going to dictate what will happen tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And to the degree that we are awake, alert, relaxed, at peace, happy, and able to function is to the degree that we're going to be able to have both the funnest life possible, make the maximum success for the most possible fun to be able to have tomorrow. Because ultimately, that's the days that we're living in. We're living in today, and the nearest time is tomorrow. So every single day we want to make amazing, right? And it doesn't have to be amazing, but we basically want to find, ultimately the goal is, how can I find one day that I want to live again? And then how can I find one day that I want to do again tomorrow and the next day and the next day? And ultimately peak performance is like being able to operate at your highest capacity with minimal effort. That's what peak performance is. Peak performance isn't like stressing out, getting tons of work done. That's bullshit. There's no need for that, and it is just useless. Peak performance is about taking what could be done in 10 years into 1 year. That's peak performance. 10 years of struggle, hardship, trying to figure it out, not hitting the mark, failure, which I agree, it needs to happen. I've failed about 20,000 times. But what I'm trying to say is that there is a point where we tap into what we actually need to do and we have zero resistance getting there. That is the flow state. That is what I call power, and that is peak performance. So to be able to tap into this, we need to understand the flow, because ultimately peak performance is the flow. And the flow is meditation, and meditation is peace itself. Now, just to kind of like put all that aside for a minute, we're just going to focus on the flow and power. Power is the state of absolute strength, like universal strength. And it isn't a strength that we have as an individual. It's the strength of life. It's like tapping into the actual strengths of life. Like, if you imagine the entire universe is one perpetual motion, one tidal wave, if you want to call it, and it is moving at a pace that is both infinitely fast and paceless. And we are in that flow, and it has a movement. It has a movement. Not that it doesn't go anywhere, but it leads in the motion of perfection. So the relative world will always be moving in, it'll always be moving further and further towards perfection, but it'll never be absolutely perfect. However, that doesn't mean that there is not perfection in the engine in which it is run. That is perfect. The perfect balance between how everything happens and how, as I was talking to a good friend of mine today, how everything, no matter what is happening, everyone is always learning. Everyone's always learning at the same time, and everyone's lessons are always integrated. That is absolutely no question about it, perfect. So what we're really doing is, as a human being, we are able to, because we are nature, right? By definition of being born and being alive, we are nature experiencing itself. So that also means that we can experience, and we are in our right to experience, being in the flow with nature. Now, this isn't some grand experience. It's just what's supposed to happen. We just happen to be at a blip. We happen to be at a blip of like the span of life. Probably more like not even my hands could even, stretch. We happen to be in one little blip where we're just not really in tune with nature. And I'm talking on this video right now about something that, if we were to look at it on a universal sense, is like, it's like a baby learning to walk. I was going to refer it to like a baby. I'm doing this because there's a massive loud motorbike. It's like the equivalent of a baby learning its first steps. This is the kind of information that it's probably less than that if you look at the span of things. But because of the level of awareness that we have in our planet and what's really happened, and there's no disrespect to that, it just is what it is, we just aren't in tune with it. So if you think about it, everything in nature is constantly in coherence. Like everything, plants, the way that plants relate to the sun, the way that plants relate to the earth, the way that the earth relates to the plants, the way that the nature responds to animals, the way that animals respond to nature, usually would be the way that humans respond to nature and the way that nature responds to humans, fungi, like everything. It is one coherent system. Now, when nature becomes conscious of itself, i.e. through a human being, there is a lag period in the time it takes for that mind to be capable of both being conscious, learning what it is to have a sense of free will, but then to go back in alignment with the greater mass of coherence with everything. So think of it like this. Because everything is one coherent system, there is zero personal identification, right? A dog is not going like, that is my food. A dog will just eat any food. He'll just eat whoever's food. Like a dog doesn't really have that distinction. The same with ants, the same with lots of animals. There's a part of the human being which recognizes self-identity and then moves away from the coherent mass of creation. Then there is a time period where that individual identity merges again with the mass of its environment. In other words, that merges again with the way that nature is naturally. Now, the benefit of having left that coherence with nature is that now you get to experience both being an individual, but then actually choosing to be a part of the whole. And that experience is what we call power. That is ultimate power. That is basically that is the ultimate freedom. Think of it like this. The one freedom that the first, Krishnamurti calls it the first and last freedom. It's the first freedom that we realize we really have, and it's the last choice we have to make. Because once you choose to be in coherence with nature, in other words, to basically just let nature do all the work, and to leave your, what we would call our ego out of the question, our individual identity, the belief, not our individual identity, but the belief that that individual identity is what we fundamentally are. There's a big distinction in that. The ego is not, this is another video, I think I've explained it before, but we remove the belief that our individual identity is what we are, and then we are open to surrendering to what we would call the universe. And this isn't some, I don't want this to be like I've said in previous videos, some airy-fairy bullshit. This is actual meta-science. This is the science that science is yet to learn, because you cannot study that which can't be studied, and the flow is something that you cannot study. You can't study something which stands behind the very thing that you would use to study it. For example, my eyes can't study my eyes. Science tries to study nature by looking at what the eyes perceive. It's like the eyeballs trying to figure out how the eyeballs work by staring at a clock or staring at a plant. All you can know is the expression, the vision, the thing that it can provide. It doesn't tell you anything about vision or how the eyes work. So if you apply that, this is something that you can't understand with the mind. However, you can get to a point of understanding where the mind doesn't need to know anymore. As long as you get to that point, which you can get to, you can then surrender the intellect to that part of the process, because the intellect will have tons of resistances to it. Mine did. I'm very intellectual in the sense of I have to understand things on a logical, intellectual level before I can accept it. I can't just be like, oh yeah, no, I feel it, man. No, I can't explain it, but I feel it intuitively. I have to actually be able to explain it on a scientific level, or at least on a level that like anyone could understand, hopefully, before I can then accept it as a part of my experience and really integrate and understand it. So if we want to tap into peak performance, this is the peakest performance there is. It's to be in tune with nature. That's it. Then day-to-day experience becomes one seamless, coherent flow. Could you ask for more than that? Like, honestly, like, could you ask for more than that? There's nothing else you could get. There's nothing more to do. You get to enjoy life while experiencing the benefits of individuality, while experiencing the love and connection with being one with the whole. And when I say being one with the whole, being in coherence with nature, being in coherence with the environment around us, being in coherence with other minds, being in coherence with ourselves, our own intentions, our own desires, and then living life in that way. That's what we call true peace, like, ultimately. And if you're in true peace, nothing's going to get in your way. Nothing can get in your way. Your obstacles will be removed because you're in the flow of nature, and nature removes obstacles. That's what it always does. Have you ever seen a tree grow through a fence, like a metal fence? You must have seen that. You've seen the craziest shit in nature. You know, those little memes on Facebook that have like millions of views. It's like some weird tree that's just grown through some like metal bar. Nature removes obstacles, or it finds a way to move around it. So that is how we can tap in. That's a summary and an example and understanding of what the flow is and what power is. That is the state of power. What I'm describing now is power, and it's something that I talk about, and I will talk about a lot, because it is a clear model of when you are in tune with the flow in day-to-day living, and when you are out of it, which would be force, which I can talk about in another video. Cool. So I think that summarizes that. Thank you. Take care.